I was 12 or 13 when I sneaked in to a concert at the Budapest Academy. The second half, it was Beethoven 5. And it was electrifying for me. First time in my life, I felt, I want to do that. And nothing else. Conducting is what? Conducting is have an imagination here, and you put across there. How to do it? How to put across 100 hostile people.
I love the drive, the challenge, the sheer lust for music.
That's exactly what it's always been for me. Like playing for Mephisto.
Schulte, for all his energy and all his dramatics and all his tension, has a deeply lyrical soul.
It's a great deal of hours and hours work put into that. Until I arrive in a podium and I know it should be like that. I am visiting the little village where my father was born. My grandfather had a bakery shop, and since I love bread all my life, the smell of the bread is my memory.
Tisztelt Mester! Szeretettel köszöntöm Önt, mint Balatonfőkál polgármestere községünkben, ahonnan élete forrása is ered. Évszázadok óta itt élt családja, nagyszülei itt nevelték 7 fiúgyermekiket, akiknek egyike az ön édesapja volt, és abban úgy tudom, hogy a mai napig gyengéd érzelmek kötik. Csodával határos módon, háborúval, vérzivataros időkkel dacolva fennmaradt nagyszüleinek síremléke.
Our original family name was Stern, and my father changed my name and my sister's name to the more Hungarian sounding Schulte during the 1930s. I was born in Budapest in 1912, 21st of October. The side of this huge Danube, which is broad, it's really broad, is that river. The side is probably the most beautiful side in Europe. Here we moved in 1919 or 20, I'm not sure, but I would guess 1919. It was 4 of us, father, mother, my sister and me. I was the youngest. And we lived here, 6, 7, 8 years. My mother was a spiritus rector of this family of mine. She did everything. And of course that I'm a musician is entirely my mother, entirely. I would not be a musician because the talent I had, but obviously I wanted to play football. I'll show it to you later where we played football. It's very near here. I thought it's much more fun play football as playing the piano. But anyway, somebody recommended to her a piano teacher. It was a German. Very much believed the physical education of pianist like that. Hit my hands, and I not very much fancied that one. So I said to my mother, I want to stop. And that was the essential good luck in my life, that my mother didn't force. If she would say, no, you have to, I would be never a musician. She let me go to play football again, which I did, with great pleasure. So it was. We started school, and we had singing lessons. And it was other 6 years old boy who could accompany us. The teacher, singing teacher, and we sang. Something, I don't know what, but he accompanied very badly. And that was clear to me, my ambition awakened. I knew I could do that better than these boys. Fortunately, I knew that. So short, I went back one day to my mother and said, I would like to start again, piano. And I started and never finished. I'm still starting. My sister Lily was 8 years older than I was. And she started singing lessons when I was 8. So my mother thought saving a little money for the family, said, you will accompany her. So I did. 2 pieces learned, which I never forget. Un bel giorno, butterfly, Visidarte Tosca. And the funny thing was, she had a very good voice. And that is a strange family. She had a very good voice. I have a terrible, ugly voice. She has a very good voice, but very unmusical was she. No rhythmical talent whatsoever. The Visidarte became 3/4 or 4/4 or whatever. As it came, as it come. Very useful. It was the first point when I began to follow as singers. Learned how to follow on piano. E non libero.
Lascia l'indegno, batti di meco, ma non mi degno di pugnar teco, ti prego.
I think he is a singer's conductor, and you cannot go into any rehearsal with conceived ideas with Sir George. You have to go there with a fresh mind, and really you've got to make your mind up, I'm going to learn from this man.
Try. You can.
Yes.
If you do it as fast, which I think is good.
Ja. Metà di voi cavalli, e gli altri vanno.
He really punches into your rhythm. And I think this is a very important thing. You might have seen in the sessions we had, he was hitting the Steinway grand piano all through the afternoon. But this is his character, he has to get the rhythm right.
Tu c'hai la bocca dolce più che il miele, tu che il zucchero porti in mezzo al cuore.
So a mixture, that's it.
Non esser gioia mia come crudele gentilmen veder mia bella amor.
When I was 12, I got a grant to go to the Franz Liszt Academy in Budapest to study piano and little later composition. This music academy probably the most important place in Hungary, because these walls here, what you see, created an enormous amount of first-class musicians. Wonderful place. Aha! You had to perform to your fellow students in the classroom, which made you very self-critical. I was regarded as something of a prodigy. I gave my first recital at the age of 13, including one of my own compositions, Scherzo for piano. Good. I learned what I know today, form and phrasing. I learned in this room by Leo Weiner. So I am eternally grateful for him. He was a difficult teacher. He could be very sweet and very nice and could be terrible. In this room, when we played the first time the Spring Sonata, everybody was very amazed because Weiner stopped everybody all the time. You could play only 16 bars, then it was wrong already. But we played so, and he said, "Oh, you are very talented. Very good. Bring it again next week." So we went home dancing. Next week we came. I just played 4 bars. He said, "No," he said. Became more and more serious. And the other 4 bars stopped again. And so, roughly the half of the exposition, he said, you have no talent at all. Why do you want to be a musician? I was quite young. I think I was 12 or 13 when I sneaked in to a concert at the Budapest Academy. It was an orchestra concert conducted by Erich Kleiber, the very brilliant German music director from Berlin. The first half I don't know what he conducted. The second half it was Beethoven 5. And it was electrifying for me. The first time in my life, I felt, I want to do that. Only that and nothing else. Conducting. Not playing the piano, conducting. I went home in a sort of elevated trance. I said to my mother, I want to be a conductor. And she was wonderful. She was a Jewish mother. She didn't say, no, come on. She said, yes, that's fine. Fine, my boy, but now you go and practice the piano. It's the right answer, of course. I did that, but I never gave up. The dream became very soon reality. Now, more than 60 years later, I am back in the same hall. I am doing a concert, a memorial concert for my 3 teachers, Béla Bartók, Zoltán Kodály, and Leo Weiner. The most important piece of the evening is the Cantata Profana by Bartók. Bartók was a god for us students. We worshipped him. But he never taught composition, only piano. He believed that you can't teach composition. I was privilege to be 6 weeks with him in his class. As you can imagine, with enormous palpitation. He was very shy and very soft-spoken, really soft. You wouldn't think this Vulcano, he writes this passionate music, spoke so gently and softly. This piece, Cantata Profana, it is a very fantastic story. Old couple have 7 sons. They went hunting, always hunting. And one day they arrived at a bridge, and when they crossed the bridge, they turned into stags themselves. I have a method how to learn a new piece. First I see like a mathematics teacher. How many pages? Then these are 92 pages. So I make a sort of 10 page per day. Then I begin to check the speed with the metronome. I write German because I always wrote German. When I was a young conductor, everything wrote in German, and I was still writing in German. It means ruhig, it is slow, but fluid. Slow and fluid is a contradiction, but I understand it. And then the illustration of the hunting. Horns, whoa, whoa, parable, parable. This is all hunting. Papa, pira, 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 papa. Papa, pira, papa, pira. And then suddenly, he comes down, a break. Where there are 7 sons after the bridge. Spraying some magical liquid on them. And here happening the transformation. This is a labyrinth. And all that imitating forest. I was 18. The director of this opera house taught also composition in the academy, so I knew him. And one day I went to him, I said, I want to be a repetitor, I want to come to the opera house. He said to me, yes, I know you, but does your parents know about it? Because opera is a very immoral institution. I said, yes, yes, of course. So he said, all right, you can start without any salary, and then we shall see. So I started. I was at first distributed to a chief repetitor. The repetitor is a fellow who plays the piano and tries to coach singers to learn the parts, whatever. Because there are some very nice exceptions, but basically, singers' folk is not very musical. Particularly it was on my time. Now it's much better. So I started playing all the operas, all sorts. I went through the repertory. And then was certain services, which was playing Rosenkavalier, Celesta, and of course, magic flute, Glockenspiel. It's all money.
It was in the 30s, you know. He was a repetitor. And it was love at first sight because George Dury, he was a fantastic young man, gifted, good-looking, charming, dynamic. He had everything. But at that time, too, you could see that he had real talent. The stuff had been in him. You could see that.
In the summer of 1937, I was given a small grant to go to the Salzburg Festival to attend rehearsals. Went to the president of the Salzburg Festival with a letter of recommendation. And 2 minutes later he said, "Do you know magic flute?" I said, "Yes, I know. Could you come at 2 o'clock at Festspielhaus? Because 2 of our repetitors, it was a flu epidemic in Salzburg, 37. So I arrived at 2 o'clock and the rehearsal started. And when they went to singing, I conducted with one hand, played the piano conductor. That's normal procedure, and I did it by now 10 years here, so I knew. Until I saw on that corner arriving a little man, my heart stopped. I knew who the little man is, Toscanini. And I didn't know that he's coming to rehearsal. Maybe I would not dare to come if I would know that. So I went on playing. So it came the break. And the break, he just turned, the first time turned around me there. I said, "Bene." That means good. That's fantastic. I went dancing home after a rehearsal, really dancing. So that was the beginning. I never seen him without a score, without working, without looking, just worked all the time. And that for me, who came not only for the opera but for the coffee house, we sat and chat and not worked. That changed my life. I saw the point that without work, you wouldn't be anything and anywhere. And since that point, I work, and more. The news of this boy working with Toscanini made a great impression back home, particularly in the Hungarian press. It gave me my big break, because until then, no Jew had ever conducted in the Hungarian state opera. My debut as an opera conductor was a performance of Mozart's Marriage of Figaro, which I had to conduct with no rehearsal. I came out here, you can imagine what a heartbeat was, my double speed, I suppose, 144 instead of 72, and started the overture. I don't know how it started, but it started. And I felt more and more inclined to feeling happy. It was a date of 11th of March, 1938. And I had no idea that on that night, Hitler moved into Austria and the Anschluss began. I had a Jewish singer that night who in the third act made one mistake after the other. I don't know, as he would be drunk. And I was very upset because I knew him well. Landvoy was his name. I was very angry. What the hell is he doing? It turned out that in the intermission he knew it. And he was very worried, like that, what will happen to him. And this was a terrible night. So that was my operatic career in Budapest. Started like that. Then began the anti-Jewish law. It said, no Jew allowed in state position. So I got a letter early June 39. That finished. I should do something else. Opera career, my operatic profession here in this house is finished. So this is the main railway station. I came here with my father on the 15th of August 1939 with a little bag. Went from here to Zurich, and from Zurich to Lucerne, to speak to Toscanini, asking a recommendation, go to America and come back, prepare my emigration. My father, he was a tall man, rather heavy, typical Hungarian Jewish with a biggish stomach, not too big, roughly my size. And he was a sweet man, loved me enormously, really loved me. And when we came here, waited off the train, this is a haunting memory, and I don't really like to talk about it. We waited here somewhere, the train came. And I want to go into the compartment and begin to cry. I was ashamed that everybody see my father is crying. And I said, roughly, rude, like a young boy, why do you cry? I'm coming back in 7 days. His instinct knew I never saw him again. Never. So it was. I left Hungary with little money, with a little suitcase. I wanted to go to America. So I went to Toscanini. And he said 2 sentences, was enough for me. Yeah, come visit me in New York, I will try to help you. I thought, that's wonderful. Now going home and prepare my emigration, but it didn't come to that. I got a cable from my heroic mother. Don't come home. She felt rightly that the situation gets very much worse. Mobilization also in Hungary, the whole surrounding countries, and of course, France, England, and Germany. I felt this is now much more serious than ever before. I didn't know anybody. I'm trapped. And so began 5 years of frustration and loneliness. I wasn't able to do any real work at all. But then I met my first wife, Hedwig Oexley. It was a very quick decision to fall in love. She was married at that point for a Swiss politician. She then left her husband. She had a boy, and the second was on the way. That was a terrible situation. So she had 2 children, 2 sons she left for me. She gave me an absolute wonderful feeling of belonging to somewhere. I was no more a little emigrant. I had a feeling of belong to a society, belong to a circle. I don't know that you can imagine how does it live in a country when you have no friends and you are a stranger, more to a stranger Jew. This is the worst what can happen to you in Switzerland. Because Switzerland with Austria are the 2 most anti-Semitic countries in the world until today. I wanted to go out of Switzerland as soon as I can. 1942, I applied for the Geneva International Piano Competition and got to the finals. So I practiced about a year for that. I had time, too much time. I was then a finalist, so I arrived maybe an hour before. I went to the artist room, there was a piano, practicing, just warming up. I never carried the music with me. I thought I don't need any music. So I practiced a little bit. I came to the Beethoven Sonata 110, which is a fugue. And I start to play, just warming my fingers, and then suddenly, what's going on? I couldn't remember the piece. And that's what it was. So I said again, but that fast gets nervous. I don't know. It was a sheer panic. The chief usher said, "No, you come in now. Please go out. That's your time." You can imagine what was this unbelievable feeling, unbelievable, that I will maybe know the first number, the Bach Partita in C minor, but I don't know the Beethoven Sonata. But I played it through. Somehow it's a miracle. All the 4 pieces. I won the first prize on that afternoon.
This is the BBC Home Service. Here is the news. During the first few moments of this bulletin, the war in Europe is coming to its official end. 1 minute past midnight is the time fixed for the cessation of hostilities.
Then, after the war, he had immediately written a letter that he wanted to come back and be a conductor in Hungary because he was homesick. Then he got a letter that, "Thank you, we don't need you, we have already conductors here in Hungary." And he could not bear, he couldn't swallow, which was also natural.
I did not want to do anything with Hungary. Neither the people who know the country, nothing. I cut it off. It was the only way to live. By chance, I heard that an old colleague from the Budapest Music Academy, Edward Kilényi, was now a captain in the American Army and was stationed in occupied Germany as music officer in the city of Munich. So I sent him a letter. I just simply asked, "Do you think you can use me?" And yes, we can use you, come. We send a jeep for you to Munich. I had such a fear to going to Germany. I was very afraid. It's only this unbelievable, bloody ambition in me that I must conduct kept me going. It was dark, it was March, bitter cold. At first, you didn't see any ruins. And you slowly, you saw one bombed house, and then more and more until we came into Munich, there was everything bombed. It was ghastly. The opera house was a total shambles. There was almost nothing left, and the auditorium just a hole. I have been invited back for a concert to mark the 50th anniversary of the reopening of the opera company after the war and the restoration of the Prinzregenten Theatre. The company was housed in this theatre because it was the only one in Munich that was more or less undamaged. And this is the first time I have been back to the theatre.
Hello, good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Er war nicht am Orchester. war der Einzige, der da war.
Ja.
Was ist das da hinten?
Das ist von Rosenkavalier, ist das eine Dekoration.
Das ist Rosenkavalier.
Ja, das meinte man. Don't laugh. Aber ist das schöner da, nicht?
Everything had to be built up from scratch. There was nothing there, all burnt. Sets, costume, everything. Which was my luck. Because if it would have been perfect, everything, play tomorrow that, and Monday that, I couldn't do it. I could only do that every premiere took 2 months, 6 weeks, while I desperately night learned the scores.
I have to admire his courage to come here. He brought with him this enormous drive. Of course, he had no experience. No, but he had a very good way to handle the situation. Later on, I remember in London he used to say sometimes, I owe you a lot, because I'm honest enough to confess that I had no practical knowledge. And of course, experienced singers can be helpful in a way, as they can be very naughty and unpleasant. No, but his authority was based on a very natural gift to conduct.
Scholte ist im September 1946 gekommen und Scholte war dann Generalmusikdirektor. Die erste Premiere war Carmen, das war eine Neuinszenierung am 1. Januar 1947. Und da muss ich sagen, man hat irgendwo, wenn ich heute in einer Gesellschaft komme, wo auch ältere Herrschaften da sind, und man kommt auf das Gespräch Prinzregentäre, dann sagen die immer, ja, die Carmen vom Scholte. Da hat es beim ersten Ton schon einen von den Sitzen gerissen.
Da ist er hier. Die Knie gesunken vor lauter Lachen. Ich konnte nicht mehr weiter.
Jetzt müssen wir freimachen, ganz, damit er alleine einmal mit den Gästen, 2 Gästen. 2. Ja.
Die magische Wirkung.
Ja. We sing for you.
Carmen! Ich habe gedacht, es muss so sein, dass die Leute aufschrecken. Ja, weißt du? So war es. So war es.
Ja, so war es.
Salome-Tanz. I'm rehearsing with my old orchestra, the Bavarian State Opera Orchestra. We are preparing a concert of orchestra music by Richard Strauss. 2. Bleib in 2. Ein Mess, Y, alles in 2 vorläufig noch. The opera orchestra is used to playing in the pit. When they play an orchestra concert, you have to try and teach them to be soloists, particularly the woodwind and the brass. And they're very good. They listen to me very carefully and very good. Oh, it's only 1 year, so I have 3 more. So I can't say more than that one. We will arrive. Salome was new for me, and this is a very difficult score until today. First time conducting Salome that really needed courage. Richard Strauss said to me, and that is the essential thing by Strauss conducting. Why do you fuchtel so much? I mean, why do you beating so much? Why? But she didn't. That was his fortissimo, that was forte, and that was piano. So Strauss came. We knew that he will be 85 years in 49. And we've been told that he wants to come and celebrate his birthday here. So we prepared Rosenkavalier, also the first Rosenkavalier in my life. And after the second act, he came through to the orchestra pit. I let him, because he couldn't walk very well, and the orchestra stood up and cheered. It was a big, big hall, very nice. And he had to conduct the end of the second act. And he said to me, "Where are the horns?" I said, "There, Dr. Strauss." "And the trumpets?" "There." He said, "Because I cannot see, I cannot hear, I can only turn the direction, but I don't know where they are." So, he said, and all with this fragility and all that old man who will barely not, the conducting is absolutely clear, you can see it, there is a film. And what is amazing, the old man doesn't know where he is, but he's there. The cue is there. It's a study for a young conductor. See, that's the cue. Wonderful. So after that, he said to me, "Come and visit me in Garmisch." Let me tell you at first that I have difficulties to speak because this is a very nostalgic moment in my life, this one. Sitting in that place which I've been 47 years ago. I rang the bell, and to my greatest surprise, he came to the door alone. And he was such a sweet man. He saw my desperate fear. I had fear. And you know, such a sweet idea. How is the opera? How is München? Now, then tell me, is Miss X, is she still a liaison with Mr. Y? I said, I think yes. So he built a bridge. From there on, I lost my fear, because if he's talking affairs, then I am not afraid. We talked wonderful. He said to me, oh, this is very simple. Rosenkavalier, very simple. He said, look, if you speak Hofmannsthal in proper German rhythm, you have a speed of the opera. You speak it, and you have a speed. You don't need to look metronome, nothing. Just speak properly. That was a marvelous introduction to Rosenkavalier for me. That's the famous trio, Hab's mir gelobt. Look at even here, you look at the word, Hab's mir gelobt, ihn lieb zu haben. If you do it too slow, you can't, Hab's mir, it doesn't work. It is Hab's mir gelobt, ihn working beautiful, lieb zu haben. He just went on talking, he went all the time talking to me. At some point, the famous Pauline, the famous wife, said, no, young man, you must go now. Richard must sleep. And he said, come back again, come back. When I came back, September, he was dead. And I played at his funeral. It was a marvelously sunny day. They said always it was a Richard Strauss day, because he loved sunshine. God smiled at him, even in the last moment.
Ich weiß nur vor lauter Rührung und vor Ehrfurcht vor dem großen Mann und halb München war versammelt. Das war, ich weiß noch nicht mehr genau, wer alles gesungen hat, das ist vielleicht auch nicht so wichtig, aber das war ein ungeheures Erlebnis. Für mich, für mein ganzes Leben ist das am Sarkophag von Richard Strauss. Und da hat Scholte dirigiert auch.
In his testament was that in his funeral should be played the final trio of Rosenkavalier, which we did. It was a very strange occasion, because we started together with 3 sopranos, and one after the other broken down. They couldn't sing, in tears. And if you think of the words, I swore to love him. Now that is such a moving sentence that they couldn't sing. But slowly they came back and we finished together. Perhaps the project of which I am most proud is the first stereo recording for gramophone of Wagner's Ring, which began with Rheingold 58 and ended with the Götterdämmerung in 64.
In front of the Vienna Philharmonic, the chemistry between the two of them was remarkable. George, who would come in like a wound-up spring with this enormous energy, would somehow get an impact out of this orchestra and an excitement which was unique.
It's a different story.
No, we get it.
Miles better.
So cigarette pause.
The whole conception now is
I'm afraid they're getting now too fast, and then I will kill you. If it ends too fast, John, I never talk to you.
Kill you if it's too slow.
Never talk to you in my life anymore.
All right, well, I promise you the
then
tempo.
you are guilty.
No, I promise you the tempo is right. No.
Right.
All right, we have 2,000 shillings. 2,000 shillings.
As we were working with him more and more, I became aware that in fact he was giving a performance for recording, not recording a performance. In other words, his conception was for the gramophone record. The pregnant pause, which might be wonderful in the theatre, might be shortened. The tempi, which might be too slow for the recording, was altered accordingly.
John, do we have now the balance, the beginning, the bass?
Fine.
Very good.
Excellent. Take 130. Ready?
It was a marvelous cast, wonderful. Frick, Birgit Nilsson. Birgit, she's a phenomenon. The vocal reserves are incredible. At the same time as recording The Ring, I was conducting a new cycle in the theatre at Covent Garden, where I had become music director in 1960. I found a very good orchestra, but not very firm leading in this technical direction. It was a sort of nice English pub atmosphere. So I tried to change that, and they hated me like anything. But I was used to that way to working in Germany, and I came here. They called me a Prussian bastard or something like that, or the Hungarian disaster. I had all sorts of nice names.
Here was this Hungarian emigre arriving in a foreign land, speaking the language, but in his own inimitable style and believing that not always understood, and suspicious of quite a lot of the English establishment. And his arrival, frankly, here was very timely. What the house needed was energizing. And one of Scholte's first things on arrival was to say, I'm going to make this into the greatest opera company in the world. And that's what everybody in this house wanted to hear.
It was a very exciting time. You could feel this was the beginning of an era. You thought, this is history in the making here. We're getting international singers and marvelous new works we were doing, and he was suddenly pushing it up into the international league.
Partito il fil laudate, accostati ben mio, già che così mi piace, signor, che compia gente femmina, che sposa di buon cor giubila.
Around 64, I had difficulties with the press. They didn't believe in a way of doing Mozart. It was a new production, Figaro, produced by this excellent Austrian producer, Oskar Fritsch, and I thought it was very good, but I hated it.
By then, there were a lot of protests from the audience. Part of the protest was we can't hear the singers, the orchestra's too loud. And there was something of a campaign being launched, in fact, to get rid of him by some section of the public.
The moment a poster went up advertising a new production conducted by Georg Schulte, a graffito artist would come across and scrawl, "Schulte must go," across it, and the company had constantly to be changing the bills outside the house.
Remember Covent Garden in those days, it was the wholesale vegetable market, and one night there was a cauliflower with a "Schulte must go" thing stuck on it, got lobbed across the footlights.
It was depressing, but it doesn't matter. You have to know what you want, not dithering, and not say, aha, I don't like me, let's do something else. No, you go through your way, and you have to be patient. If you want something new, it will be naturally opposition. So it was.
He hit this place like a whirlwind, quite honestly. And it was noticeable that in no time at all, everybody was taking their instruments home to practice.
It was like having a really good orchestral trainer. The orchestra in those days, it was a very mixed bag, and there were many people that played in cinema orchestras, military bands. A lot of the brass came from the brass bands. He was often correcting what we would look on as nowadays as basic mistakes or problems, like getting rhythms together. A classic one being the dotted rhythm, sort of da 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 da, which is 1 2 3 4 1 2 3, and so George would no boo 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 boo.
Pa, pa. Give the main emphasis on the last note, yes? On the last note and very late. Pa, pa, pa.
He would never take no for an answer from a player. If you told him a thing was impossible, he would say, I mean, this actually happened. He'd say, yes, yes, I know you can do it. You must practice more.
That's excellent. That's fine. If you could manage me the A a little longer, nearly no break between. A kind of legato, a kind of legato. Okay, let's start. And very much ask you, the upbeat is very essential. They have forte still, so come out. Pa, pa, pa.
Sir George was a tremendous personality, and very, very gradually we grew to like him and to respect him without any doubt. And some of the fear went away, and one almost loved him because he meant so much.
This is the BBC Third programme. Tonight we are relaying from the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, a performance of Schoenberg's last opera, Moses and Aaron, of which this is the first stage production in this country. The opera is produced by Peter Hall.
Part of Moses and Aaron is kind of the grandest grand opera that's ever been. It's the first huge opera I'd ever done, and they don't come any huger. I mean, I think I had over 300 people on the stage at Covent Garden.
And I found it intolerably difficult. I studied during Christmas holiday, I remember, in my chalet in Villa. And I many times was on verge, say, I can't do it.
The Opera House hired me, I think, 5 or 6 strippers from Soho, but because of the Lord Chamberlain's needs, they had to have very large pieces of elastoplast placed on their nipples.
I was just very angry with Peter at one point. when the Naked Virgins came, it is very difficult to score. I had no time to look up and I had to watch the score. I was very angry about at that point. Everybody could say except me.
Schulte is precision incarnate. And in a sloppy world, which frankly opera, both musically and dramatically, usually is, a world of sentimentality and approximation and rather indulgent emotions, his precision was a wonderful corrective.
Oh, it's even faster. Oh, at 16. It sounds like a shop in Poland.
No, someone's backing up.
No, let's do just that.
Sometimes it gets to you. I sometimes think, I wish we didn't have that little ding, 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 ding. But it's very good because at least you know exactly where you are. And I think from my early days, this is what I always found with him. You could never get the rhythm out of place. So once he was set on a certain rhythm, you knew you didn't have to look at him for several bars because you knew you could turn back and he was in the same place. It was very secure.
Raise a little bit here.
He was the most incredible person. I adored him the moment I saw him. I was terrified. Of course, everyone is terrified when you first meet him.
Good girl.
But I just saw the funny side of him, because the funniest side of all was he looked like my father. He walked the same, his head, the way he bends his head was all the same. So I just kept on thinking I was talking to my father all the time. And from that point on, I just always laughed at him. Not rudely, but I always saw a funny side to him all the time. Those wonderful wicked eyes.
We can start.
His discipline and his sense of authority is never malicious and never without a sense of helping the artist.
Just shortly before the very end of
I've just been talking to the artists about the rehearsal of Boccanegra, and they absolutely love being worked over and coached this way, and they don't get it anywhere else. He has this amazing charm by which he can bully the artists and pester them with this kind of Hungarian glamour and charm. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think it's one of the things about Hungarians is that, like Alexander Korda and Zsa Gabor, that they carry with them great glamour, and he created great glamour around the opera house.
I think the date of our first meeting was either, I think it was the 3rd or 4th of September, 1964.
Very early September.
How it all happened was that I was doing an arts programme for the BBC, for television. I arrived in my green minivan, which was my pride and joy. And they said, oh yes, Dr. Schulte is waiting for you in his room. Oh, ooh. Yes, that's it. This is the door. There it is. I stood here and I knocked. No reply. So I knocked again, and a voice said, what do you want? And I said, I'm from the BBC. I've come to interview you. And then there was total silence, and shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And then the door opened, and a face peered out that was swathed in steaming towels, and said, what do you want? And I said, I'm from the BBC. I've come to interview you. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry, I'd forgotten the time. Closed the door again. There I was in the corridor. About 30 seconds later, the door opened, and there was sort of Rocky Marciano, Cassius Clay figure, wrapped up in a bathrobe and towels, opened the door and said, please come in. I was ushered into the room, and the figure in the towels said to me, I will get dressed, disappeared back into the bathroom, and then turned round and said, please could you find my socks? So there I was in this room, there was the bed, there were sort of clothes a bit all over the place.
And came this rather beautiful lady, a sort of future Miss America or Miss UK or something like that, not BBC. Because the BBC for me represent always old ladies, or rather fatty, bosomy old ladies. And that was something different. So that was my first impression. Out of that became an endless saga 35 years. I was separated, my first wife, and she was married. I mean, more
I mean, it was
immoral cannot be, is it?
It was the most unlikely situation. He said to me, I think 3 days after we'd met here, I want to marry you. And I said, don't be so ridiculous. I've never heard anything more outrageous in my life.
It was so.
We got married on the 11th of November, 1967, Armistice Day.
It's the last peace day in our life. But I don't diminish her influence on me by saying that a major change in my life came with my 2 children. I was 57 years old when my first daughter, Gabrielle, was born. And I was nearly 60 when my second daughter, Claudia, was born. And you know, I always say that 2 things made me really a believer. It's a very strange combination, the 2, but here it is. The one is Mozart. That was one of the second. My first daughter, Gabrielle, was 40 minutes old, I think. And I hold this little child, and she opened her eyes like that. And I knew there is behind that eye a soul just born. And that cannot be by chance again. That teaches you that something above you, which you don't know what, but somebody is above you.
Baseball today, the Cubs' win scan ended. Houston beat us 3-0. Chicago's weather tonight, cloudy, windy, and warm. Tomorrow, windy and warmer. The high tomorrow, about 75.
Although I was nearing 60, I had never held a post as a music director with a symphony orchestra. I stayed at the Royal Opera House until 1971. But by then, a new world had opened up. The Chicago Symphony is really a fate for me, was from the very beginning. I fell in love with this orchestra. Immediately, first sight, love at first sight, really. It sounds not too phony maybe, but it wasn't. And when I finished here, 2 weeks, I went back to my American agent. I said, if you get me an engagement, Chicago Symphony, every year I am coming. So it was.
When Maestro Schulte joined us in the late 60s, 69 I believe, the orchestra was a bit, shall we say, demoralized. We'd been through some somewhat difficult years for any number of reasons.
There have been certain members of this orchestra who didn't talk to each other at all. It certainly was a rehearsal in which the first flute stood up and loudly said, "I can't take that anymore," and out went. Just like that, just left. I knew very well, instinctively, this is a decisive moment. If I tolerate that, my days are numbered. Okay, that's that. So I asked the two gentlemen to my room, and I said to them, very heartfelt, it was real, you either make peace right now here, in my presence, or I leave you immediately. You can look another man. I am not staying for a day longer. And they knew I am not joking, because you can't work with such an atmosphere. So after that was a short silence, and then said, Mr. Peck, the flutist, "Oh, I think he's an excellent oboist." And Mr. Steele said, "Oh, he's a first-class flutist."
Welcome to the Usher Hall and to the 25th Edinburgh International Festival. A capacity audience has been assembling for tonight's concert, which is a very special occasion. This is the first public performance to be given anywhere outside North America by one of the great orchestras of the world, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
Maestro Schulte, I know, made it very plain when he accepted the position here that if you want to be world class, you got to get out of Chicago once in a while. So we toured Europe for the very first time in 1971 for 6 weeks.
George Schulte comes to the stand to conduct the Symphony No. 1 in C minor by Brahms.
We had an absolutely marvelous trip. The concerts went extremely well. Everyone was very excited about doing this. He meant to make us a world-class group, and I think he did just that.
You see, they'd never heard them, they'd never seen them, because people didn't come to America a lot then, as they do now. And suddenly there it was, in Europe, playing in Milano, playing in Frankfurt, playing in Munich, London, Berlin.
Salzburg, everywhere.
We had a ticker-tape parade, and it was amazing because it's very narrow and dark. They're almost like canyons, the streets. And you looked up, and there were all these pieces of paper, the ticker-tape, people in the office windows waving, and all the paper coming down. It was quite extraordinary.
Like
and suddenly, the orchestra became part of the identity of this city, because it had always been here, but suddenly there was an enormous input of feeling and joy that the city had got this wonderful orchestra. It was a sleeping beauty, really.
It had not only forgotten, but the city was famous for Al Capone. And certainly, the world knows the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
George Schulte imprinted this orchestra and himself on the city of Chicago by his own dynamic personality and his conducting skills, and what he helped to build and maintain with the orchestra. One year, the picture of George Schulte was on the front of the Chicago telephone book. Every once in a while, you will hear a sports analyst say, you know, he controls batters the way George Schulte controls musicians. What's interesting to me about that is that not only that the sportscaster knows George Schulte, but assumes that his audience, the sports audience, will know who he's talking about. You would never have that happen in any other city in this country.
I was music director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra for 22 years until 1992. But we never moved here. Valerie and I had already made our home in London. The decision not to move was one of the most difficult in my life. We had 2 small children, and as long as they were little, they were able to travel with us. But when they started school, the situation became difficult. We believed, rightly or wrongly, that the education in England is much superior to the education here. So the children stayed in England, but the price was high. To pay for this wonderful orchestra and the first-class professional life, you sacrifice a little bit your family. Was it right or wrong? We will never find out.
I think that since he became a family man, he has warmed up personally and musically. We've all experienced things like that in our own lives. And it has an effect on his music making, of course. There's no question that both musically and personally, he is a changing person, as we all are.
These days, I'm just a freelance conductor. I am music director laureate of the Chicago Symphony, and I am back to perform and record the Shostakovich 15th Symphony, his last and one of his most personal works. My dear Mr. Kost, should you not try to use the hard stick?
Okay, I'm using hard, I can use wood.
Should you try 73, the 4/4? Could you please, everybody play 70 with a big trombone solo? 73. I made over 100 records, so 120 approaching with the Chicago Symphony. But I no more believe in studio recordings. If you have a first-class orchestra, then you can risk playing an hour music with very little mistake or no mistake at all. And you gain a live atmosphere which you in the studio you can never have.
There's nobody equal to him in the recording field. First of all, he loves the recording medium. He's so dedicated to it. Every recording he makes is something special. And there's nobody I've ever worked with who has that quality, who really does believe in recordings, documenting something that is going to be for the future, posterity.
I think his genius is letting the music speak for itself within the parameter of the beat. He doesn't have to stop and pick the daisies, so to speak, on a long trip across Texas. If one got out of the car to pick every pretty flower that was there, when would the trip ever end, and how would it have any meaning? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and one is drawn through the great line of the music.
third floor.
Thank you. My life is a constant traveling, a constant journey, but equally a constant studying.
Hello.
I firmly believe that the last 15 years have progressed much more than 25 years before, and this keeps me going and gives me great happiness.
Maestro, toi.
Thank you. Music has such an internationality. My life is the clearest example. I do Hungarian music, I do French music, I do German music, English music, Italian, all the time. And I think I do it all well. Now, it wouldn't be possible if I feel chauvinistic in one way or the other. I don't think that music will achieve political unity. I don't think so. But it maybe help easing the hate, easing the non-conformity between the nations. It will help heal the wounds. That some afternoon, by the lake Balaton, seeing the graves of my grandparents, which I never seen before, and which through a miracle withstand time, that made me feel maybe first time ever in the last 40 years that a part of me belong still to Hungary. This is very moving and it's very disturbing, of course, because the history of my family lying in these graves, partly here, partly God knows where. And I know the God knows where what that means. It means terrible things. But I think we should forget that one. I'm glad that I could see that. And they very sweetly made this tree in memory of my visit. I hope the Third World War won't ruin that one. I can only hope. Where I am, what I am. I'm no Hungarian anymore, no English. A so-called cosmopolitan, which is an awful word. Yeah, what I am? A musician. A musician with a family, which I love. That's my life.